Hello and welcome to City Connections. I'm Mayor Sally Hutton and I'm here today with Tom Milligan, and we're going to talk about Townsend Center, an upcoming fundraiser they're having, and then get a little bit of the history of Townsend Center that Tom is an expert at. So welcome, Tom. Thank you for being here.
It's a pleasure to be here.
What about our upcoming annual garden party?
Well, it'll be the 19th annual garden party on July 16th from 5 to 7 p.m. And this year the party will take place at the Gar Mansion out on Pleasant View Road.
That's great.
It's a tremendous view of the city when you're up there in the front yard and looking out over the northern side. And we're quite excited about it. And we've had maybe 3 heavy rains, but this year we're promising beautiful weather. But we've had a lot of fun, even though we've had a couple, 3 of them in the rain. The garden party is a principal fundraiser for Townsend Community Center, and most of the food and so forth is donated. We have people that come primarily to look at the gardens. We have some that come because of their interest in supporting Townsend Center. But everybody who comes is there because they like the food. And my wife has been involved in the garden party since its inception and has successfully recruited a lot of ladies over the years who do a good job with the food. And once in a while, a few men.
You know, I've been to several of the garden parties, and the food is very good. And being at the Gar House this year, what a great historical place to have it at, and be able to see that and all the renovation that the Mikesels have done to that building is amazing too.
It certainly is. And the Gar House, of course, was built right at the turn of the century, so the theme this year is Victorian Splendor. And if there's anything that embodies and displays Victorian splendor in this area, it is the Gar House. We have people, I understand, from many miles away taking bus tours to Richmond specifically for that purpose. And hopefully while they're here eating a few meals and gassing up the bus.
That's right.
And all the other things that
those
provide.
Tourism dollars are very important.
Oh, they sure are. And everyone who comes to the garden party will be able to go through the Gar House. It basically includes the cost of their normal tour. We won't have the normal tour. There'll be persons in each room, so you can go through on your own and what you want to see. And you can spend the whole 2 hours there if you want, or you can spend 5 or 10 minutes, but everybody will have that choice. We also have some violinists, and A.J. Daggy is one of the group, and she's getting them together. It's called Strings Unlimited. They get together every Friday morning just to play for their own pleasure. And my wife contacted A.J. one day as we were leaving church, Jim and A.J., and so she agreed to have the group come out, and they'll be there playing background music throughout the afternoon.
Well, it'll be a good afternoon, and it's a very worthy cause. I know it was about this time last year that, or maybe a little before, that Townsend found out that their finances were not that great, and there was, I don't know, of real discussion. You are a board member about closing down or what to do, but the troops have really rallied around Townsend Center. And it's amazing the programs that are offered again. The building is utilized so many evenings of the week too, and you've done a great job here with the help of a lot of people. But the finances is still important to keep that going.
That's correct, and that's why the garden party is so significant. We have an annual dinner, which took place in April, and you were a big part of that, and we honored 2 young men, the James brothers, and it was really, anybody who attended that event realized what everybody else missed. And the other fundraiser is an annual appeal at the end of the year, and that's, of course, when all charitable institutions are sending out letters. And so we have now, I think, great leadership in Mona Mayberry as our executive director, and in William Harris, who is chairman of our board of directors. Those 2 persons receive the greatest credit for keeping this place going over the past year and a half. And another individual who preceded Bill as the chairman of the board was Sandy Wagenacht, and she did a tremendous job because we had some turnover in our and our staff leadership here, and the program as a result suffered. And Mona has really brought the program back, and I think there's somewhere between 110 and 120 children here daily in our summer camp. And then of course we had a basketball clinic down here last week with Boogie Sanders, who grew up here.
He had the Soul Fest. That was fun.
And the Soul Fest.
It was so hot, but there were so many people here.
I understand you were one of the judges. How did a politician get into that job?
I got the food contest. I didn't have to do the basketball.
Well, I think that they picked you because they felt you would be a discerning and fair judge.
Especially with chocolate.
I'm sure you were. But yes, I understand. I was tied up last Saturday, but the Soul Fest really attracted a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And the city provided a lot of services, as they always do. And I think Bill Harris was in judging the barbecue.
Yeah.
And I guess he used his position a little bit to make sure he had to taste all that good barbecue.
Well, what's so neat about this whole past year is the number of people that have stepped up to the plate and come back to volunteer. I know Etta Lundy does a thing or two once or twice a week, and a lot of the adults that grew up in the Townsend Center area and benefited from it have come back to help other children have that same experience. And that's why I'd like you to go a little bit into the history, because your family has been part of Townsend Center for a long time.
Yes. When I was growing up here, my mother was on the board, and at that time the Townsend Center was in what used to be the fire station at North D and 8th Streets. And because of the railroad blocking the access to the north side of Richmond, they moved it across to the north side of the railroad. So that fire station, and I don't know when it was built, but it was built sometime in the 1800s, was actually the second home of Townsend Center. And then at the end of World War II, when things started opening up and building materials became available, the Salvation Army, who had their center here on this location, and it was a converted large frame wooden house, and they moved up to South 4th and A Street, brick building, which was built new at that time. It was actually built by a veterans organization, and the Salvation Army acquired it because there weren't enough funds in that particular organization to finish it. And so this building became available, and that's when Townsend Center moved from North 8th Street here to North 12th. In 1963, Tom Jones had just retired from Earlham College, and of course he had a tremendous reputation as a fundraiser, as well as an academic leader. And Tom had been very successful in raising money to pretty much rebuild and to bring Earlham's facilities up to date. Ed Newsbaum, who was a member of the board, a longtime merchant in the shoe business here in town, and Al Taylor, who at the time was still with the Indiana State Excise Police. And Al was a leader in a number of organizations locally. They set up an appointment, and I was with them as a committee of 3 from the board of directors, and I was treasurer of the board at that time. And we tried to persuade Tom Jones to help us raise $125,000 to build a gymnasium and connect it to the old facility, the old home that stood at 855 North 12th Street. And the children roller skated in the basement, and there were some facilities, but extremely limited. And so Tom said, I'm not interested at all in raising $125,000 to build a new gym. But he said, if you'll take on the challenge of rebuilding North Richmond, we'll raise all the money that's necessary to build a whole new center. And out of that drive, a fellow named Fred Reeves came back, who had been involved in sweat equity programs primarily with the Friends Church. And he became our leader of that particular effort. And he had done some projects with sweat equity in other cities, and similar to what was done in Indianapolis. And we picked up some of the experiences and made some visitations. And so the theme of building a new center was redevelopment of North Richmond. And out of that came the passage of the redevelopment ordinance, followed by the housing ordinance. Now, I think it was the League of Women Voters who for years had been involved in trying to advocate a housing ordinance. I think I'm giving credit to the right group there, but they've always been involved for the betterment of the city. And so between those two ordinances, and particularly the redevelopment ordinance, we did made a great effort in rebuilding North Richmond. Richmond, of course, became the site for one of the first times in the Chicago district of housing and urban development for scattered site housing, public housing. We have public housing on South L Street and in Westwood on the west side, and there's 50 units in each of one of those locations, but there's 100 units here in North Richmond. But they're scattered, and they are among other private housing and various types of public housing. But that was a great effort. And
that's not just apartments, that's actual homes.
Right, yeah.
There's the
correct.
turnkey houses.
That's correct.
I think there was a rental program too with housing.
That's correct. I think there's some Section 8 in that.
Right.
And that's the rental program, and that helped out. And Townsend itself actually took up a title to a property across the street here and rebuilt that one as an example. And of course the housing...
Well, actually HUD even put some money into Townsend in the kitchen because they use it as their community room rather than putting them in the apartments.
You've got the right thought there. I'll just clear up the details on that.
I'm kind of muddy.
The reason for that, Mayor, was that in most housing projects, and we've seen them, multi-story projects, and particularly in larger inner city areas, had a social accommodation, a room on the first or second floor for the residents. Well, in the budget, the Richmond Housing Authority, when they were set up for these North Richmond sites, they had the budget to build the homes, and they're all single story, and much like the other homes in this area, the new ones that have been built. But they did not have a central situs in the classic housing complex for a social room. And so we realized we needed to help them with their problem. So we went to Chicago and met with HUD, with the local HUD or housing authority officials, and we were successful in persuading HUD to put $30,000 into the construction of this center, which was 10% of our goal. This whole place was built for $300,000.
That's amazing.
And so they put that in, and in order to show the equity that the housing authority had, the lines were carefully drawn legally. I don't think it was ever surveyed, right down through the block walls of our multi-purpose room. And that's right next to the kitchen. And so that's used by the residents of this area, and none of them have to pay rent, and children who come here never have to pay a membership. So
see, we were creative way back when. This is a very innovative community to get things done.
That's right. And Townsend itself was started about 1922, and was named after James M. Townsend, who was a minister at Bethel AME Church. And he integrated Hibbard School back in the teens by taking his daughter there to enroll her in class. There weren't any lawsuits about it, but nobody had actually attempted to do that. And he did that and provided other leadership. And so the Townsend property was named after him. We have two facilities here also named after, well, three, named after other individuals. We had the Deathridge Room, and Boston and Irina Deathridge donated a large sum of money during this building fund drive, and so that room is dedicated to their memory. Then we had the Richardson Library. Cornelius R. Richardson and his wife Melba donated money, very significant amount of money, to our fund drive. And he was the first black attorney in the state of Indiana. He was admitted to the Supreme Court bar in this state, which also allows you to practice in local trial courts. in I think about 1912, 1913. It could have been a few years before that, but it was a significant event. And his diploma from Tuskegee was signed by, let's see, I should come up with the name right away, but that diploma is a real historical document which we'd like to have down here. And someday maybe that'll happen. The other facility that's named for an individual in the center, it's rather appropriate, I thought, was the Thomas E. Jones Memorial Gymnasium. He didn't want to build a gymnasium, but he helped us rebuild North Richmond. So I think Townsend has a proud historical background, and we've had a tremendous amount of support over the years through various groups. And right now we have students from Ivy Tech, IU East, and Earlham all donating their time, and some of them have classwork assigned to them in regard to Townsend Center.
And Townsend is, a lot of people think it's just for the black community, but it's not. We have the Amigos down here now, and everybody is more than welcome. And like I say, there's many activities that bring people here.
That's right. And obviously the athletic activities attract people clear across the colors of our population. The Amigos program is a very strong program here, and I think it's one of the places that they feel very comfortable in this city. And Earlham faculty particularly in the foreign languages. They've provided Spanish teaching and English teaching for those persons. And Townsend, as a result of always being helpful to various groups, there's no question but what this center was originally built for. The Articles of Incorporation said, for the colored persons of Richmond. But at that time, there were a number of various Eastern European ethnic communities, virtually all of them were Caucasian, mixed in with persons of an African American description. And so it has been the place where groups could meet, and many people had their first experiences with an interracial type of conversation or social gathering, which is important to the growth of the city.
The North End was really Italian, Irish, Hungarian, black. It was multiracial way back when.
It certainly was. Yeah. And so Townsend, to the extent that Richmond's been a melting pot, Townsend's right there in the middle of it.
They've done it.
Once in a while, the fire's a little hot, but as a practical matter, overall, it's been a great experience. I came on the board in 1959 at the urging of Luther Coring, who was the director of the Department of Welfare at the time, who was a member of the board. And I've been on and off the board ever since, and for 48 years. That doesn't seem, or 47 years, doesn't seem quite possible. But I was working in Indianapolis for a while. In fact, I was full-time with the other party for a while,
We
Mayor.
will bring that up.
But I was still involved in Townsend, not as a board member, when that was going on. Then about 10 years ago this September, we had a tremendous event at the Leland Ballroom, and it was a Townsend fundraiser, when we honored Weeb Eubank,
Right.
Hall of Fame National Football League coach, only one to win titles in both the then National Football League and the American Football League. And of course, a young man who's now an older man who grew up at Townsend, Lamar Lundy. And so we had a great celebration that day. And because of Weeb's connection with Richmond, having been born here, a young guy who was very discouraged because no team would let him play, who became maybe the most outstanding quarterback in football history, Johnny Unitas, was here. And then, of course, Lamar was able to bring in Deacon Jones, Merlin Olson, and Rosie Greer. So it was a unique thing for Richmond, and I don't know that any other community has either been able to pull that off. I've been to various events with Lamar, but not of this same type, where people had access and really could talk with him. And they all got their picture taken with him. And They made a contribution for that picture, all of which helped Townsend Center.
Fundraising is so important to any organization.
That's right.
And it's even better when the whole community supports the events. So we encourage people to come to our garden party.
Right. And I think some people have the idea, well, let's go out and raise an endowment and set it aside, and then we'll operate off the interest. Well, that's rather an interesting concept, but virtually no organization that's live and really moving and serving people gets into that position. And it's because the people who are active and supporting with their dollars and their volunteer hours. And Mona Mayberry has been tremendous in getting volunteers back in here to help.
She has a
with the program.
full-time volunteer.
That's right. That's right. And so all those things make it work. I know in the Archbishop.
And the kids need to see the people too.
That's right. That's right. And I know from my legal experience, the Indianapolis Diocese basically took title to all land, for instance, that was contributed to the Catholic Church, the Roman Catholic Church. There's a good reason for that. They wanted their local parishes still thinking they needed to raise the money for their own operations. And that the Roman Catholic Church has been around for a number of centuries, and it's worked well. And that's the same thing. People have the idea, oh, let's just set this money aside and that'll take care of it. Well, no church operates that way. No Boy Scout troop operates that way. And certainly the Girls Inc. is a beneficiary, and certainly Boys and Girls Club in the kinds of services we provide at Townsend. It takes us all to get the job done. And it takes everybody's support to financially provide for and to lend their talent and time to those organizations.
I have found the years that I've been involved in the community, this is a very giving community, and a lot of people support more than one organization by all means. And I know last year there was concern because I think there were 7 major fundraisers going on for capital improvements, but I think the majority of them met their goals.
Well,
and we need to keep doing that.
That's right. As you know, I'm involved as the chairman of the fundraising committee for the Cardinal Greenway Trail. And I know that I've been involved in fundraising here and a number of other projects. But the people who give, the people who share, pretty much support them all. And there are people who don't share, and it doesn't make any difference how much they've got.
That's right.
They are not, their background and the way they grew up, the way they were trained by their parents, that was not a part of it. But if I would have any true satisfaction, it's some of the opportunities that I've had in working with people to donate. And as you know, many people just hate to ask people for money. But as a practical matter, if you've got a program and you're a valid cause, you can raise the money. And I try to inspire people to do that. You know, Tom Jones taught me how to raise money back in 1963. He'd walk into the office and he said, I don't know what you have scheduled today, but I tell you what, we're going out all day. And he said, we have a sacred trust. He said, we're commissioned to go out and relieve people of their possessions so they don't have to worry about it.
That is a good point. We need some more Bill Gates in Richmond, Indiana that now they've raised their money and earned their money over the years, and now they need to start just giving it back.
That's
that
right.
would be great.
That's right.
If we had one Bill Gates, we'd have it made here.
We've had some persons who have left the city, and then as a result of various contacts, have invested considerable amount of money back in the city, and they just had that interest. This is the old hometown. And as a practical matter, many of those persons live in very large communities now where you don't have the hometown concept. And those who live in suburbia around a Chicago or a Dallas or St. Louis, they really don't have the hometown concept in the place that a county seat town can. Now, we're in a situation of economic adjustment, and we have to keep up our educational system so we're attractive to other types of employers coming in here. And you know that better than anybody in this city.
We need
And
that quality of life to attract people.
that's right. And we have to inspire our young people, and we do that with various programs here to go out and get an education and equip themselves for a good job.
That's what I think is one of the best things that has happened to Townsend Center the past year is the amount of adults that have finally realized they need to come back
Right.
to the Townsend Center and help make a go of it, because they realized that it was very important in their young lives
Right.
as they were growing up, and now they need to give back. And sometimes we get carried away and too busy and forget some of the important things in life. So people have stepped up to the plate, but we need to continue that with our fundraising.
We need to just give them those opportunities.
Our garden party will be
That's right.
July 16th.
July
Is
16th,
that a Sunday evening?
Sunday.
Do they need reservations
We encourage reservations,
so you
but
get enough food?
that's right. We have to have some plans ahead of time, and they can call the Townsend Center and ask for Mona Mayberry. And the invitations for the event actually going to be mailed today, and but we don't begin to get invitations out to everybody who has an interest or would be interested. Our invitations go primarily to persons we know who have attended in the past and we determine might be interested now. So everyone's welcome.
The Gar Mansion is a very big house, but the grounds are even bigger, so there's room for hundreds of people to come.
Right,
Hundreds.
right.
Well, anything else, Tom?
No, I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you this morning, Mayor. And I also apologize for being a little late.
I apologize for coughing too.
Well,
Surely the mold will leave the air one of these days.
We appreciate this opportunity to get on local television screens, and you're asking us to share the time with us.
Thank you. Thank you very much
All
for
right,
being here.
you bet.
And that is your latest edition of City Connections. We'll see you next time. Thanks.